Hello ladies, I hope you're all doing well. I'm Mrs. Sherman and welcome to Homemakers Radio. I hope you can listen while you work. Now, there are a lot of motivating things you can watch, but you have to stop and look. And so after I show you a few things, then I'll let you go and you can go and clean something, sort something, work a little bit in something that maybe is difficult, and it'd be nice to have a voice. And I do have my favorite things that I listen to, and I am going to encourage you to just clean one room today or do one thing while you listen. Before you go, I'd like to share my teacup. It is similar to the one I showed you last time that was blue, a blue background, and it's a sweet pea on a pink background. And I understand that these came in other colors as well, yellow and mint green, and it's by Clarence, made in England. It's an antique. I'd also like to show you some of the things that I get sometimes when we exchange. Our family likes to exchange things that we don't want anymore or we're going to give away or get rid of. We run it past each other first to see if one of us would like to have it. And so this is what I used to do when I went to Goodwill or I went to the fabric store when patterns were only 99 cents and there would be a special sale, and normally they're $10 to $12, but I would buy something because it had a piece in it that I liked. And I have here a costume pattern that I probably would never use, but I liked the sleeve. So I will save that, so I will have a puff sleeve for another garment that wouldn't be a costume. And they also have a variety of sleeves in here that I might use, and there are other things too, pieces. You can fit pieces from other brands, like from Butterick to McCall's to other brands. You can, if you tweak them a little bit and gather them a little bit, they will fit. They're generally made the same. So I will save that, and I'll probably remind myself by putting a little sticker on there that says sleeves, so that I'll know that is the reason that I am keeping it, because I'm likely to look at it and think, what did I get that for? I'm never going to make that. And then I'll realize there's a collar there, or there's a sleeve, or there's an accessory that I like. So I'll keep it for that reason. Another thing that I want to show you is that Hoffman Media that I like. You remember, they're the ones with the nice backs on the magazines. They look so pretty on the coffee table. They publish other publications besides Victoria and Tea Time, and they have special publications. And I got this one called British Tea, and you can get them in the grocery stores or order them. I ordered them because I'm not out, you know. And this one had this is British Tea from 2019, but they have a new one every year. So you can go look at Hoffman Media and see their special publications. And this one had an article called Afternoon Tea on the Move, and it was all about tea time in a train. And this is called the Bluebell Railway. It's in England, in Great Britain. So I needed to know some of that so that I could find out what their menu was, because I'm planning a train trip in the Mets in June or May. And so I'm collecting the pictures, and also it tells where they stopped, where the train stopped, and what the activities were outside of the train, and all the other things that happen on a luxury train that you might spend $2,000 for. So I wanted to know that, so I could help other people experience it, help all my downline, my descendants, experience it. And then Mr. S, who's my butler, who goes around and scouts around for things for me, and he enjoys it. He brought me home. He stopped by the travel agency, and he brought me home the Rocky Mountaineer luxury train guide that goes through the Rocky Mountains. And so I'm really excited about that. And I have a friend that went on one of those trips and just loved it. So it has some interesting things about what you would do on a train. So I'm mostly interested in what you would do on the train. I can't provide, well, I do have some scenery, and they can take a picture out the window and say that they went on a train ride. The other thing I want to show you is something you can get if you'll order it. You can probably get it for free, or maybe it costs $1 or $2. is a homeschool catalog. Now, I'm not saying this is the end-all to be-all best publication of homeschool materials, but it is one that is easy to get, and you can order a handwriting book, and you can order a reading book, reading lessons, and be prepared to homeschool yourself first. Go through a kindergarten curriculum, homeschool yourself, and then be prepared to help somebody else. You just never know when God's going to use you. You think it may never happen just because you weren't homeschooled, but you don't know this. So get this ABECA book, and that has a lot of other things in it in higher grades that you might like to try. But get yourself a book and get yourself educated. That's the best way to learn. I wasn't homeschooled. I went to public school, but when I got the homeschool books for my children, I had to go through them also, and I was absolutely taken with them. Absolutely, they just touched my heart so much, and it will change you. It will really make you close to, now I saw what the scriptures were talking about. Now I saw what God was all about. You can't grasp all this on once a week at church, or even on Wednesday night and Sunday night. You cannot grasp it the way you would if you were actually studying it and teaching a child and absorbing it. And all of these lessons, we hear these lessons all the time, don't we? Like I told you about last time, the wise man and the rock and the sand. It teaches you, these things teach you while you learn to read and write. Not just to know something intellectually, but to absorb it into your life and to make it part of your life, and teaches you how to do that. And so I would just really encourage you, just get yourself one book, okay? Just one book from ABECA or from another company that you like. And I suggested Christian Light for the preschool and younger grades. And so I want to start the day out now. Some of you have been with me for 20 years. You know that I'm going to say get dressed, so I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the new ones, the ones that are new here. If you would please click the link that I provided in the description box and go and listen to this. Over on my post, you'll see the other things that I post to go with the video, and also look at my sidebar and go visit my friends. And also you will know that if this is not long enough for you to finish a room, it will go on to continuous play and you'll be able to finish. Now today I'd like to talk to you about getting dressed. Those of you who are new here, I don't want you to think I'm just picking on all of you that already know this. Getting dressed and getting prepared. Like I got dressed up special for you. Yesterday I didn't. I was in my old plaid shirt and my corduroy skirt, and I did not do much to myself, but I was going to be out in the outside quite a bit. But today I got dressed up just for you, and I hope that sometime when you listen to my video, you'll get dressed up for me as though you're coming to a class in my living room. Now, some people have said I can do so much more with these presentations and get a great audience. I don't want that. I only want 20 of you. I only want as many as might fit into my living room. I know 12 will fit, but I only need at the most 20, and then some of them it won't be for everybody. And I don't actually want too much attention, because I know that YouTube and other platforms are removing people that are conservative, and so I want to be careful and not draw too much attention to myself. But just enough for the ones that are interested. You know, we're only going to meet a few kindred friends in our lifetime, and that's all we need. We can't handle thousands of people anyway, so we can't have a relationship with thousands of people. So getting dressed, I wanted to tell you what it does for you that I haven't told you before, is that it prepares you emotionally. Isn't that such a great start for a day, is to prepare yourself emotionally? And you get to look at yourself in the mirror, make sure your eyes aren't hardened and that your attitude is not bad. And you'll get to say, when you're looking in the mirror and fixing your hair and your face, say, "Oh Lord, help me not to be too negative today. Help me not to be too critical today. Help me to be gracious to everyone." And so getting dressed can lift your mood and lift the moods of others and show them that you care about them. I know some people can be very disappointed in their mothers. When you're growing up, were you ever disappointed in your mother, how she walked around in such dreary clothing? And not all mothers, I'm just saying, I've heard this, that they really were disappointed that their mothers walked around in such dreary clothing. Of course, now today, everything's so dreary, but it can lift up other people. And it's very important if you have young children, because this affects them emotionally. The way you dress affects them emotionally. Today I'm wearing my butterfly dress. And if you have young children, wearing prints that are of nature has a great effect on them. And we're very careful when we choose clothing for our children, and they like to have some kind of a pattern or print on them. And I think it's really important because they look at you a lot too. They spend a lot of time looking at you. So getting dressed prepares you also for unexpected things. As I told you, there's the day you decide you're not going to bother, and that's the day all kinds of things happen where you're called out, you have to go somewhere in a hurry, and you're not prepared. As you get older, I think it takes a little bit longer to put yourself together. And some of you who are really young could get away with not bothering. You can get out of bed and not even take care of yourself, slough around in your pajamas all day, and you just look gorgeous. And it's because youth is on your side, and you got good skin and good hair and everything. But for a lot of us, getting dressed means taking some time to prepare. And we have to have an emotional preparation for the day too, especially these days during captivity, when you know you're going to be facing these responsibilities at home. And I have listened to some friends who have called me and told me that they can't believe the level of busyness that has come into their lives since they have stopped being so dependent on the outside world to provide them goods and services. And it's a lot of trouble to go and have something done. They have learned to do a lot of things at home. It takes a lot longer. Everyone is busier preparing food from the basic ingredients, even planting little. I was watching a video where someone's just told all they did was how to grow peas in a pot and a tomato in a pot, and that was all. But it takes time. It's like having a child to look after. And how everyone is so busy doing things that we all used to do for ourselves in the olden days, but then gradually goods and services commercially became available, and we were glad to have them. But now that is not as easy to attain, we can do so much at home. And one of the things I have assigned to my grandchildren on Zoom is to make a list of all the things that the home can provide for you that people would pay for somewhere else. And it's not to encourage you to just go into a business so much as it is for you to see that you can do a lot of things for yourself that you might otherwise pay for. And we're going to be absorbed in listing all these things, from educational things to hair and body care things, to clothing, to furnishings, to paintings, to all art. I'm trying to think. It's so vast. It's also a center for your social life, and we are finding more women are. By the way, I hope you're not sitting here watching me, because now it's time for you to go and sort something, make something, clean something, or just do one room. But a lot of people now are coming around, and I thought that people would forget to visit and have personal contact with other people, because they have their phones, and they were used to going to these fast food places, sitting down and plugging their phones in, and also eating by themselves and not being bothered with other people, that perhaps they would continue on that life. But I'm finding more and more people saying that their social life has really increased. They've had more drop drop-in company, or people telling them they're just dropping in, and more opportunity to communicate with people face to face than they ever had before. As a matter of fact, I've seen the church we're in getting more sociable. They're growing. They're not hurrying out the door. They're not checking their social media anymore, and wanting to leave early so they could check, if they've heard from their kids or grandkids, because they're all coming. Everybody's coming, and I have noticed more people coming also, and being intently aware of what the messages are. They're not being distracted. So what we're finding is that instead of going to a place where they sit down and have some French fries and a hamburger and everybody leaves them alone, they really are looking for one-on-one relationships now, which I think we're going to come out of this addiction to the phone and social media, and I hope that is true. So now that we're less dependent on the commercial goods and services, we're going to have to learn more about how to be casual hospitality. How do you welcome someone in your home without letting them think that they don't say make yourself at home. They used to say that so much, and it worked, and it was wonderful, and we all understood what it meant. We didn't believe that it meant to take advantage of it and go and be at home like you would your own home. We would never have helped ourselves to something in their fridge, and we would never have stayed from 10 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock at night. We have to be really careful now, because we're entering into a phase where people are going to have to learn some manners and etiquette about concerning this. And you think that the former times were better. Let me tell you, I was reading a book the other day where the Victorian women were having a problem with rudeness, and finally, the way people acted when they came over to your house. And of course, this is in America, and America was a newly formed society, and they had a lot to learn, and new generations had to learn it all over again. And so the Victorian women and men wrote into newspapers and had books published about how to act in someone's home, or how you as a hostess could act towards someone who is behaving boorishly, how to politely correct the situation, and they had a long list of things in some of these old books. I believe I found some of them on the web. I couldn't tell you what the links are, but you could look them up yourself, Victorian etiquette manuals. And they had a long list of common infractions of politeness. And it was just things like not wiping your feet, or things that we take for granted, but they had to retrain a new generation. It isn't something, it's like our Constitution. Just because it's there doesn't mean it's working. You have to reenact it, remind people of it, and tell them how to bring it into your life. And it's the same with the Bible. Just sitting there, it does nothing. But when you read it and you start walking by it, that changes your attitude and your manners. And so these Victorians had an awful time with the boorish way people were behaving, especially out west, where things were rather wild anyway. And so they had to reteach and also recreate table manners and manners towards the hostess, and things you would say and not say. And they're generally the same. Don't talk about anything that would turn someone's stomach. Don't talk about sour, dour things and death and things like that while you're eating. And it reminds me of Elizabeth Gaskell's story that was made into the movie Wives and Daughters, and I'm trying to think who it was. Was it Lord Cumnor that was talking about something that was really depressing, and someone said, "Oh, gracious, that is so depressing, Papa." I think it was Lady Harriet. She said, that's just so depressing. He said, "Well, I'll just get on to a lighter subject." And so they were in mixed company, and he said, "Old Mrs. So-and-so at the lodge passed away." And which is a little twist on polite behavior, and just a little irony there to make a point. And so these Victorians had a difficult time. If you think we're having a hard time now, at least we had the commercial area and the restaurants and the stores and things that you had to behave a certain way in there. You can't just go in there and act like you own it, you know. You have to be very courteous of other people around and the other customers and the other diners. And but they had not so much of that, but most of it was going on in the homes. So they had to learn and they had to teach how to behave in the homes. And then in the 1990s, Judith Martin came out with a book on how to behave. I'm trying to think what it was, Guide to Polite Behavior or something like that. And that was when we were all, the society was slipping again. So we're having to redo these manners and tell people what to do. You could write your own little manual, you know, just get a notebook and write it all down of things that you would like, the way you would like things to be at your home and what kind of manners people should have. And so there are some people that get very upset if you don't say good morning to them or good night. You have to say good morning. When you first see them, you have to say good morning. They just want that. That's a ritual that they have to have. Now, I particularly don't have to. I'm usually up earlier and busy in the kitchen, and people that are staying here at the inn don't have to come into the kitchen and greet me and tell me good morning. But as soon as they see me and I see them, I smile and tell them how happy I am that they are here. And that's all. We don't need to have, you know, these rituals. Also, good night is a problem with me because I like to slip away and go to sleep and let everybody stay in the living room and visit, and I don't want to break it up by saying, well, it's bedtime for me, I'm going to bed. I would just like to quietly go to bed and just let them continue. I don't like to cause any kind of a break in the harmonious visiting that's going on. So I don't insist on, you know, say good night to me or me to them. But that is just a preference of some people. You could write your own, you know. And so home living is a skill. It's going to become more important as the days go by, and even if all this nonsense, all this political nonsense goes away, we have learned something that we need. We have learned how much more we need the home and how much more we need to learn how to live in the home with others, or if you're alone, how to enjoy being alone, and how to develop your best, how to be at your best and develop some skills and learn some talents, and how to be prepared for being used of God. So things the home can provide, everything from education to hair care to teaching. You can use the home for many things of teaching. And with teaching, it's not a matter of one teacher and 20 students like it is the public school. This is why we homeschool. We're changing the whole system. I don't believe that whole system was effective for everyone. It's not a matter of having, and I'm homeschooling you right now. And if you will get one of these books, you can continue your lessons and homeschool yourself in some subject that you could be prepared to share and teach. It is not a matter of one person teaching 20 people. With homeschooling, we interact, and you learn as you teach your children. You learn from their responses. You learn what things that they cotton to better than other things, and you learn their learning style, and you don't fight it. You don't fight with them, because here's the problem with trying to copy the public school system of teaching, is that it's a strict way of learning that they think suits everyone, and not all their materials suit everyone. And so you might get a child who's more agrarian, who really prefers to be outside and to pursue something that's more outdoorsy, and you can't, the public schools can't provide all these things for the different people. But in homeschooling, you can tailor make it to the child. You can tailor make it to what the family really wants for each other. The other problem with public school is one teacher, 20 students. How effective is that? Whereas they will criticize a large family. Let's say you have 8 people in your family or more. They will say, well, how can that mother teach all those children? And yet it's so hypocritical, because in the public school you'll have one person teaching 20, 30 people. And they'll have all kinds of problems, because just because a child is there from 9 o'clock in the morning to 3 in the afternoon does not mean he absorbed everything. Unfortunately, when their minds are tired, they're woken up by an alarm clock, shuffled away on a bus, and gone to a school amongst other children. They become detached, and they also are being very tired. Their minds are susceptible to the easiest emotion, to the easiest way out, to grabbing onto fads and grabbing onto beliefs and ideas and grabbing onto what other kids are doing, because they're weak, and we should not send the weak to be in battle like that. And so homeschooling is more than just the knowledge. It's more than just the books in that catalog, like I told you. There is the heart to be educated. There is the emotion to be educated. There is the action and the life. And it's a whole lot more than you even ever dreamed of. It gives life meaning from a very, very young age. And so another problem with public schools that I find is they keep a lifetime record of wrongs. I was listening to some of the men talk at church during the potluck the other day, and they were talking about the harshness of the schools they went to, on how they brought home report cards that just said F, 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 and that those report cards, even through high school, followed them and became a perpetual record of failure, followed them through all their lives and their jobs, and even today people ask about them. And so with homeschool, we don't have grades, because what we do is we order a little workbook, writing book, and they enjoy writing, and we can erase it, and as they learn they can do it again. We can make copies of the pages, and then finally enter it into the book as a lasting memory. But we don't give them grades that they can't repent of. We don't give them failures. We don't teach them failure from an early age. We don't give them things that they cannot. A lot of children got these low grades, D and F, C, D, and F, and didn't know why. They were taught they weren't working hard enough, or they weren't paying attention. But at home school, all we did was help them practice the work until they learned it, and if they didn't learn it, we put it away and pursue something else for a while, and something of more interest. And I know a lot of you know that you didn't even understand some math things, math concepts, till you were in your 30s. So a lot of times I think that we are teaching children too young to learn things, and then giving them grades that are a record of, the Bible says that love holds no record of wrongs, and yet the schools violate that. They give you a lifetime record of wrongs, and they keep score of wrongs. But homeschool, the philosophy and the methods behind it is it's a perpetual life of improving and learning and glorifying God and being happy. And you don't have to look back on it and say, oh, I remember that time I got an F in math, because they won't have an F in math. They're either going to learn it or they're not going to learn it. And if they don't learn it, then we just give them hope, saying, you will eventually understand this. You don't give them an F, and you don't flunk them so they repeat grade 3 or something like that. You just keep the grade 3 stuff around, and then you keep working on it. And I had a 6th grade math book that was so thorough that my children stayed in that math book clear through high school, because Becca was so, it stretched you. It stretched. There was so much in it. It was like college level, I'll have to say. Their 6th grade math book, in my opinion, was college level. because we're not dumbing things down for the children, and they just go as far as they can. And as long as they've learned some basics, they're going to be okay. But also the public school, where do they get off on establishing what the standards are for a good education? Where do they get off on that? Who gave them that authority? Did you know that schools are not in the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence? As a matter of fact, we need to declare independence from their system and create our own at home that suits our children. And so it's not, and also health is not in the Constitution. I'm just homeschooling you now. We'll get into homemaking eventually. Health is not in the Constitution either. Well, it says the Declaration of Independence was the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that's like health, but the government is not given the responsibility of dictating your health standards to you, or to, and you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about something that starts with a V that everyone thinks that we should take. Look, you go to the store, some of you are really into health, and you'll go to a grocery store and you'll read that label so carefully. You don't want any extra sodium, and you don't want any aluminum, and you don't want any of this stuff in your body. And you'll shop the outer perimeters of the stores with all the fresh stuff and real food, and you avoid things that are canned, jarred, bottled, packaged, and you won't read what's in some of these V ingredients, and to see if you really need that put through the tissues of your body at a high speed. I don't know if you know what hypodermic means. It means speed. Is pushed through your body at a high speed, and I've often thought, if the ingredients in those V's are so wonderful for you, and they first of all, they don't cure anything, they don't prevent anything, they aren't a nutrient, they're not a vitamin, they don't boost your immune system at all, they harm your immune system. But if they're so great, why not just put it all on a spoon and eat it? Because they know that it's poison and it would ruin the inside of your mouth. But they think nothing of this archaic method of inserting these foreign ingredients that have a lot of heavy metals into your body. So read the ingredients. Don't take what the public health system tries to force on you. Just read the ingredients and determine whether some of these poisons go straight to the brain, and small children should not be having them at all. And so that is, I'm being careful not to be too graphic, and I don't want to be taken off, but I realize that by doing this I might lose 10 of my 20 subscribers. But just be careful, because God made things for our body that are natural for our body, and man starts mixing a bunch of hocus pocus chemicals and up with other things, and thinks that that is good. But there's always money behind it, and it's never something that's done out of real concern for real health. And as I've told you before, real health is good sleep, good water, nutritious food. And there's no such thing as healthy food, it's nutritious food. Nutritious food, and a happy state of mind and peace in your life, and cleanliness. Well, there's a lot of those things that people stopped doing, and they'll substitute some of the chemicals for it, thinking that that's going to help, but there's no substitute for real good health. Now, one of the things I did mention is ingredients on labels for the homemaking. I wanted to tell you something that I know I'm probably going to get a lot of trouble for this too, that I have always avoided, and that is self-rising flour. This was created in the 1800s, I believe, for the British military, so that they wouldn't have to eat the hardtack. You know what that is. That's when your bread doesn't rise and everything's so hard, like a big old hard cracker. And so in the military and on ships, they could make a decent bread. But it's made by adding baking powder and salt, and it's the wrong baking powder and the wrong salt. It's all mixed up in this bag of flour. you'd be better off to make your own baking powder or get, we have one here that has no aluminum in it called Rumford. And there are some others, but you can make your own. You know, just look up on the web. I think it's cream of tartar and soda bicarb and cornstarch. But there is a recipe which you could make your own. And so avoid self-rising flour. For one thing, you don't need it for everything. You don't need it for a pie crust, and you don't need it for things that don't require, like making a pie topping or anything like a gravy. You don't need that self-rising flour. Just get plain flour. Plus, self-rising flour is often bleached flour. It is not unbleached flour. Unbleached flour is a kind of an off-white, kind of a light brownish color. So the whole thing is just bad nutrition. Don't use self-rising flour. You don't need. Have a look at what is in the baking powder that rises the self-rising. That's for rising, the rising ingredient. Find out what kind it is, and find out how you can get the most natural. You don't need self-rising flour, and that's for lazy cooks anyway. How much time does it take to dip into a can of natural baking powder or soda bicarb or something like that? How much time does it take to dip a teaspoon into that and add it to your flour and mix that into your flour? It's so minuscule. I don't know why we have to even buy it. And it's the whole flour is got a tinny taste, and the flour does not have that wholesome, nutritious smell or taste that an unbleached flour does. So there, I lost 10 more of my subscribers, of my 20 subscribers. So one thing that captivity might have helped us in, and but I want to tell you that there are some people that have always felt that they didn't belong. They belonged in another era, or they just never felt like they fit in, whether it was in some kind of social group, in school, in church. But now that people are home more, and home is the focus, and home is everything, and they're developing themselves. They're taking exercise classes, they're taking art classes, they're learning how to, there's even Zoom cookery classes you can take, and they're interactive, and you can learn to cook something in your own kitchen. And now that people are really concentrating on the home, on arranging it, getting very interested in arrangements and design and decor and painting it, and just textiles, everything. As a matter of fact, I'm sitting in the guest room again. I've changed it again. Some of my grandchildren love this room, and I like to change it around a little bit. So I changed it into this white, kind of white decor. And I've heard people say, oh, they give all kinds of disparaging remarks about a color like white or black or something like that. But my decor is never permanent. I can change this just by putting a colored cushion on there, or a different blanket that's got color on it. So nothing I do is permanent. People will say, oh, I never use white to decorate with in my home, but they're thinking they're going to have a permanently white chair or a permanently white couch, but not me. I will just cover it with another blanket, and even my chairs and couch, just recover it, and I can undo any mistakes I've made. And so being home is everything, and now that everyone's home, they're starting to feel like they belong somewhere, like they are part of something that God intended them to be, and not, when we quit looking out there to belong, or quit looking at any kind of social structure to belong, and we start focusing on the home. Now you look at how the I believe it was 1995 movie Little Women, how those girls played. Now that they portrayed it quite accurately. I don't trust or like, Hollywood movies, but this was pretty good, and they showed these girls, they depicted these girls the way we used to play on the homestead. They get upstairs, and then they out of paper bags we'd cut out costumes and masks and things, and we would play. And they would get up there, the March girls we get up there and they had a drama society of their own. Well, this is really how things used to be. We would do our own, just do our own social things, and so we always felt like we belonged, and then we bonded, and we liked being there, and we knew who we were, and we didn't go out and get a lot of anxiety from not feeling like we fit in, and not letting the rest of the world remold our personalities to fit in, like when they would say things like, you're too quiet, or you're too noisy, and we start to pattern our lives after what other people thought. But when you're at home, you start adjusting to one another, and now people are saying, I feel more like I feel more stable, I feel like I belong, I don't have so much concern about my personality or where I fit in, because you fit in at home. This is part of the whole thing about homeschooling. And as I told you, I'm getting ready to take everybody on a train ride. Now, if I were in the public and I said something like that in a public group or somewhere where I worked, or maybe a school or a college, I think they'd probably try to have my head examined. One of the things that being home and homeschooling is helpful in is to take your, I talked about emotionally, how getting dressed emotionally prepares you for the day. Also, taking care of your home also can have an emotional impact on you and everyone in your family. Keeping that home beautiful and clean and uncluttered and well arranged with beautiful things around helps everyone's emotion so much. And we tend to, I think, as women, go by our emotions. Like, I don't feel like sewing today, I probably won't sew. But there are some things you can't feel yourself into that have to be done. You know, a child needs bathing, changing, and emotionally you're not, you just have to be alert all the time. So what I would suggest is to teach your children and train yourself to turn, instead of feeling like doing your duty, turn your duty into your feeling. For instance, you feel like doing your duty. It just takes practice, but duty becomes desire, as the old saying goes. Duty becomes desire, and I think it was When Duty Becomes Desire. It might have been a poem. You might want to look that up. When Duty Becomes Desire. Now, teaching others, and especially in homeschool, is a matter of passing on something that you're learning to someone else. And it's not like, I just have an aversion to this idea of one teacher with a whole group of little kids trying to teach them all, when there is more to life than head learning. And of course, you know, the public school knows this too, and they try to teach them emotionally too, but I don't think that's their responsibility. Whereas at home, the child can learn at his own pace. And a lot of boys, especially, I think, are harmed by a group type of learning. And another thing they do is they group everybody according to age. And that's not healthy either, because children are not born in batches of 26-year-olds or 27-year-olds. They're born in a family, and everyone's a different age. If you'll watch these families that have different age groups in it, and how they all relate to each other and to their parents, and how they learn from these different age groups, you'll see how much more effective it is. I had some questions about people. And that is two things that I noticed here. When someone is jealous of you, let's see if I can find it here. One was what to do when someone is jealous of you. I can't think of what the other one was. I don't see it in my notes here. we'll just do that one then. What to do when someone is jealous of you. Well, that's hard to detect, isn't it? People act real strange. They don't actually come out and say, I'm jealous of you, or I'm envious of you. So, but they'll act strange, and you'll wonder, why do they always act so strange? Maybe they correct everything you say. Maybe they follow you around. Maybe they listen in to your conversations to other people. Maybe they have, maybe they do talk about you, and it's gotten back to you, and so you sense that this person is distracted by you, that they are obsessed with you, or they're jealous of you. And I don't have an answer for that. We've had sermons, over the years and the decades, places I've been where people tried to correct the jealousy thing and talk about gossip and stuff like that. But I've never seen anything that says you have to put up with it. And so I decided, all the advice that I got was, when someone's jealous of you, you just show up and you just hang around them and you just be confident. Otherwise, if you disappear, you're admitting that it's true. But I don't see any scriptural thing for that. I think whatever makes for peace for you would be the best thing to do. So if you sense that someone is jealous of you, or that they are trying to overwhelm you or undercut you or smear you or malign you in some way, my answer was just not to show up to some of the social things, because then you wouldn't be a target and they wouldn't have any more material. But if you start to reason with them, they don't reason very well. If you start to talk to them or try to work it out, then it just becomes a bigger problem, because immature people will take that and run wild with it. And so my solution was bring more peace to myself and to my children, to my family, by not attending some things, or not accepting some invitations, or not being in a group with people who are like that, and just go and do something ourselves. And a lot of people would disagree with that, especially if it's in a, let's say you're in a gardening group, or you're in a, and it happens in all kinds of groups. You can't just blame the home or the church or anything, because it's anywhere where there are people. And I've heard people say, oh, I was in a church and somebody was, I saw somebody disagreeing with someone else, I'll never go back to church. Well, do you say that about work? Do you say that about school? Do you say that about shopping? You ever see anything unpleasant going on at the checkout? And of course, I'll never go back, but the churches bear the brunt of it, because apparently people don't understand that these are problems that have to be, they're anywhere. They're everywhere. And so my solution was to just stay out of the spotlight and let them miss me a little bit. And this was I was in my 20s when I decided I was going to do this, to see if that was effective. And I liked it a lot, because it people who target other people to talk back to them, to contradict them, to just argue all the time, if you're not in the picture, they'll just do it to somebody else, and then they will be found out. So somebody who's stronger than you might end up confronting them about it, but you don't want to. I don't really believe in confrontation at all. I don't like it at all. I have never seen it benefit anyone. However, some things, can't be ignored, especially if they're harmful. If you see someone who's harming someone in your family, you can confront them about it. But generally, a person who is jealous is someone who has no goal or burning desire to make something of themselves. And that's why I say we can come on the other side of captivity if we will apply ourselves to some of the things that help with self-improvement. I've mentioned some of them. Your appearance, your exercise, your talents, your work. If you've got a place in your house that's really bothering you, if you tend to target other people, to focus on them, to be jealous, go and clean up a room. Go clean out your garage. Go paint your garage. Go clean out your car. Just have all these things to do. Your duty is your home, and do the best you can with what you have. Now, I've never had envy. I will say things like, oh, you you went on a canoe trip. I'm so jealous. But that doesn't mean wicked envy like that. It doesn't mean I want to do it at all. It just means that that's something I admire that they did. And you have to have the sense to know when someone's talking tongue-in-cheek. But the way that to keep jealousy away is this simple thing, and is to realize that if they have something or they've done something, it costs them quite a bit. They also have more responsibility to take care of it, or they also, maybe they went on a trip and it was a luxury train ride, but that cost them a lot of money and they missed out on a lot of things at home. But you know, you have blessings. Everybody has blessings that other people don't. Like somebody was blessed with maybe more money, a fine house. Seems like everything's gone nicely for them in their lives. Their children are very cohesive with them, and we can look at them and wonder what happened, that it wouldn't be, that we wouldn't have the same. But everybody else has different, you have different blessings. And when you look at it that way, then nothing somebody else does ever bothers you. You also may think, I have different talents. Like, well, sure, this lady has, she was able to do this and this and this, but she actually can't cook. I can. And so you think about what your advantages are, and that way you won't focus on other people. You won't be focusing on them. The other thing that you can do, that these people can do, that to avoid their targeting other people with their jealousy, is to embark on a course of self-improvement. Get books on manners, get books on, now, not everything in a manners book is going to apply to you, but at least have some knowledge of it. At least read it and know it. Especially concerning conversation, especially concerning interacting with people in a social situation. We're not as formal as we used to be many centuries ago, but there are still some things that apply. And one of them is not trying to outdo people with a better story, or trying to cut down people, or criticizing their homes, or criticizing their children, or bossing their children. That's just not done. There are other things that you could probably write down, the things that bother you socially, and go through and make those your etiquette problems to solve, and make some etiquette standards from just the things that bother you. I taught my sons who were learning to teach and preach in the church, besides the content of the lessons, you need to avoid the habits and the mannerisms and the content that bothers you the most in other preachers, and just take that out. That's a way to success. The things that aggravate you the most about some of the speakers you've listened to, you don't do those things. Like, there's some people that like to be very emotional, very dramatic, very self-focused, you know, and so if you can portray God to other people, and they think about God when you're talking to them, and they say to you afterwards, I learned a lot about such and such, then you've succeeded. But if they come up to you afterwards and say, boy, that was quite an adventure you had, wasn't it? And how old were you when that happened to you? Then you're not talking about the right thing when you're delivering a lesson or a sermon. Or maybe you have caused them to focus too much on some personal experience and not enough on the standards and the principles you're trying to get across. So that's just my 2 cents worth, and I probably lost the last 5 contributors. So ladies, I wanted to tell you something else about the things that God gave us, that as women at home and as homemakers, we have a responsibility to enact. First of all, He gave us our smile. Now, I have told several people that in America, we are known for smiling. And I listened to a speaker one time, and I've forgotten what her name was, but she had come out of communist Russia, and she'd written a book called Falling from a Star. And in this book, she had said that when she came to America, she said she was just all in all astonishment because people would smile. And that is one thing we're known for, is easily smiling. Well, what the state has done to people is they've covered up our smile. That is our ministry. That is the greatest thing that we're known for, is our, she said people in America were happy and they smiled. And she said even the poorest person smiled. And so what do we do now? We have to speak through our eyes. If you're wearing a mask, you have to speak through your eyes. And it reminded me of Solzhenitsyn's book, The Gulag Archipelago. And he had said that when he was in a prison camp, of course, no one was smiling, and they didn't dare smile, but he was having a very, of course, all of them had a very difficult time, but one man came up to him and looked at him, and he said, I saw in his eyes this great sympathy and this great fellowship and this great love. And he said all this man did was take his finger and draw a cross in the dust on the ground. And he said after that, this warmth, this wonderful feeling of strength came to him. We're going to have to start expressing through our eyes. But in the first place, I don't believe God created us to wear masks. I don't believe it's healthy to breathe in the air you have just breathed out, because that is a waste product. That is intended for the trees and the flora and the fauna. That's intended to go back out into the atmosphere. So that's very dangerous for your health. Never ever put a mask on a child. And I mean, how do you feel? How did you feel when you were a little kid and someone put their hand over your face to keep you from screaming or something? You smother, don't you? And so you might say, well, it's not the same thing. But God gave us the built-in right to breathe and to express ourselves. That's why he gave us our faces and our smiles. We minister through our speech. You can't hear people. They're all muffled through these masks. You can't hear people. There's a lot of people here that don't even go out anymore in the commercial world because they cannot. And I'm not talking about elderly people. Young people won't even go out because they say they can't understand what's being said to them at the post office, the bank, the grocery store, the car repair store. They're just sick of it. And so we were created to communicate. So that is a God-given right and responsibility too, because he wants us to communicate him to others and communicate his values and his standards. We're also created to transportate. We're supposed to move about amongst people. And when we're restricted and we can't do that, that makes it harder to obey all of God's will. And so these people are no longer working for God. And some people get very confused about this scripture about the powers and how you have to obey them because they're appointed by God. But they don't read the part that says to do good. They're not supposed to punish the good people. They're there to continue God's plan to keep orderly society, but not to punish those who are good. They're there to do good. When they cease to do good, then they cease to be in God's plan that way. And then also God gave us the right to help other people, to visit them, to cook for them, to care for them. And when they start restricting our people from coming to see us and from us to intermingle with our elderly parents and with our little grandchildren, that is very wicked too, because we can't be the influence that God intended for us to be on them. Now, a lot of you are going to be busy now because you're going to be in training, and you're going to be so busy getting your house prepared. First of all, I think that's the most important thing. Get your house in order in case you're called on to help someone, or in case you're called on to maybe share some teaching material or do something for someone who needs to have a cup of tea. And this is going to be big now. The home is going to be a big deal, to be invited into the home, and vice versa. is going to be a big deal. And I would like to suggest that you only start with one person. Now, I did talk a little bit about a class we had decades ago where we went from one lady's house to another and they each one taught a lesson. Well, we've been doing that on Zoom with you just sit in your house and maybe 3 or 4 people come on and each one has something to give. We've been doing that on some of our Zoom classes for my relatives and friends. But I wanted to tell you that the other thing that we did, we only did it once every couple of years. We didn't have a regular class. That would have taken a tremendous amount of time. And then, because our most important goal, of course, is our home, keeping it in order, keeping our children around us, our family around us, not neglecting them to go to classes. And if you'll watch that movie, Love Comes Softly, you know, that Jeanette Oak movie about the woman that came out west, and her husband took her to one of the scenes was a harvest get-together where it was the end of the summer and they were getting ready for a long winter, so they all got together. That'd be one last time they would see each other before the spring. And so that was one time. It wasn't like they did that all the time. And you can't start something. If you start something and it's a regular thing in your home, it's either going to take over and you can't concentrate on your home. I'd say just do it once in a while at appointed times, not every Tuesday, not every Thursday. The other thing is there are some people that have never developed a concept of time. They will come at 10 o'clock in the morning and stay till 10 o'clock at night because they don't have a purpose and a goal in their own homes. And I knew people who had told me they had had to sit down with someone a time or two and list a bunch of things for them to do at home so that they would understand what the purpose was. There are some people just more comfortable in someone else's house all the time. You need to be careful of that. If you're going to do something like that, like teach sewing in your home or teach something temporarily, you need to make it a one-time thing and then just make it clear when, it's from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock or something like that. Just make it clear how long it is, except for dear friends, like I would keep them here forever, and my family. They don't have a time limit. So today, we have solved the world's problems, have we not? And I want to encourage you all to leave me a comment and tell me what all you got done. I'm going to try to put my apron on and get busy with all my things. I've got to catch up on correspondence today, and I have some books to put away in a room. And let's see, what else do I have to do? I have to cut out a couple of garments for my kids and try to get started sewing that before. I have cut things out and I wait too long and then they outgrow them before I get them sewn, but I want to use up my pretty cotton, and I got a contribution from some nice person, and so I went to Hancock's of Paducah online and ordered a piece of fabric. And so hopefully that'll come today and I'll show it to you this week sometime. So ladies, I hope that this has helped to keep you going while you did something. And so when this is over, just put on your favorite something else and listen. And it reminds me of the old-fashioned radio show. We used to listen to the radio while we were washing dishes back in the olden days, back in the 1950s. We just turned the radio on and they'd be playing music. But we also had windows. When you were washing dishes, the sink was always placed with a window overlooking your little kitchen garden. It was called a kitchen garden. It was the stuff you went out to go, your salads. And that way we could see how that was doing. And the washing the dishes by hand was actually quite pleasant if you had and it's set up really nice. And so we would turn the radio on and listen, just kind of get through that. So I'll talk to you later, and hopefully I'll see you here more often. And please leave a comment, and I want to thank you. I'm so honored that you came to listen, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.